Welcome to Unleash Your Audacious Confidence on Win-Win Women TV. This show is all about sharing the tips, tools, and techniques that will allow you to step boldly in the direction of your dreams despite your feelings, fears, or past failures, to imagine what's possible for yourself and live the life you deserve. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence on Win-Win Women TV. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, and we have a marvelous show for you today, a very cultural show for you today. And I just want to invite you, first of all, to go connect with us on Alicia360.com. But also, I would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Alicia Couri. So go ahead and connect with us on YouTube. Go connect with us on other social media platforms on Alicia360. And of course, I always encourage you to go to winwinwomen.com and check out the many shows that they have on that platform. It's a streaming platform for women to inspire you, encourage you, educate you in all these different areas that affect us as women, as mothers, as women in the workforce. So go check it out. And they have live local events that you can attend as well. So go to Win-Win Women. And if you want to be a show host, if you want your own show here on Win-Win Women, just go to redcarpetceo.com. Scroll down, you'll see Become a Show Host yourself. When you click on that, it'll take you to Win-Win Women to be a show host. All right, so let's get into our show for today. Today, we have some powerful Latina doctors that are coming to the stage to share how they are impacting their own community. So El Puente is a dynamic institute with the purpose for improving the advancement of the Hispanic Latino workforce. The Institute conducts research and education centered around the influence of Hispanic Latino cultural drivers from psychological and behavioral perspectives. El Puente is focused on discovering and sharing the impact and influence that cultural drivers have on the success of the Hispanic Latino community and workforce. And with us today are two of its founding members, Dr. Patty Delgado and Dr. Patricia Conte Brooks. So come on, join us for the show, ladies, and let's have this fabulous conversation on how we can really explode the influence of the Latin Hispanic workforce, especially for the women, the Latinas out there, and build their confidence in their workforce. So welcome, Dr. Patty. Welcome, Dr. Patricia. First of all, I want you to each introduce yourselves and tell us what is your main focus, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
Yes,
Dr. Patty.
thank you. Thank you, Alicia, so much for having us. Very excited to be part of this amazing, beautiful initiative that you've created, and for being the voice, right, for all women of all colors to come together and understand just the immense power we have within us. And we just need to maybe tap into that a little bit more, or just let it go, whatever you
Unleash it.
Yeah, that's right. Unleash it, however you choose. So thank you for having us. My name is Dr. Patty Delgado. My doctorate is in psychology, specifically business psychology, and I am one of the co-founders of El Puente Institute. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, which is a beautiful Sun City border town, right? Far west Texas. And I am Mexican American. I was born here in the US. And so my bicultural, binational identity is shared here, living on the border. We cross very naturally across the border to Mexico. Our community is binational, bicultural. And so it is really a reflection of what the current economy and just Latino state of the US is going to look like as our numbers continue to grow in the population, and we all become sharing this binational identity. So very proud of that, and proud to be part of El Puente Institute in partnership with my amazing, what we call tocayas. When you have the same name in Spanish, if I had Alicia as my first name, you and I would be tocayas. And so Patricia and I share the same first name. I go by Patty, she's Patricia. But I'm super proud of being part of this institute with her and Dr. Alejandra Milky, who is not with us today, but shares all her love with everybody here today. And so, Dr. Patricia, I'm going to hand the reins to you. Again, I adore her and Dr. Alejandra, which is why the Institute has been so successful. So, Dr. Patricia.
Yes, buenas tardes. Good afternoon. It's a joy to be in the company of comadres. That's another term in Spanish that we have. When you are with other women, allies, women that you share a lot with, you call them a comadre. It's sort of a term of endearment. It's like a little deeper friendship. So thank you so much for having us. I'm looking forward to this conversation. A little bit about myself. I'm an immigrant to this country. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia. I came to the United States to a small town in Oklahoma when I was about to start high school. And I found myself in probably a place and a space that both of you probably shared. And I've always been the first and the only Latina in many rooms. So being a woman of color, being the first and the only, has shaped a lot of my history and the things that I've done. So super excited when I get to work with others that share some of the same lived experiences. I'm in higher education. I've been in higher education universities for over 20 some odd years, specifically working with underrepresented students, BIPOC students, and students of color around retention and success for students of color. My doctorate is in organizational development and change management, and I did my whole research on Latina leadership, and that's how my path started to cross with Patty. Around how do we lead differently, right? How do Latinas lead? What do we bring to the table with our Latinidad, and perhaps what's standing in the way of our leadership as we look at our Latinidad? And so, super excited to be here to discuss and see how we can share it, and really thankfully humbled that you are invited us into your space in helping us lift our message and our conversation, because we all need to lift each other up. And so thank you so much for having us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. And something that I do share with you, Dr. Patricia, is that I grew up I'm originally from Trinidad, so I'm an immigrant to this country too. So that's one thing that we share. And the second thing is I grew up actually in Australia. So I was an immigrant to Australia too. And being the only, in my class, as I grew up in classes, the only Black person in the class. It was always something interesting, and it shaped a lot of who I became, being that only represented person in that room. So you mentioned about Latinas in leadership, but I want to first start with, even in the workforce, how can we recognize, build Latinas in the workforce? Dr. Patty, we did a preview show a few minutes ago, talked about sharing some statistics around the workforce itself, just the Latin and Hispanic community in the workforce. But I also want you to go just a little bit deeper, both of you, talk about the community as a whole, but then let's break it down into the women and women in leadership. So I don't know if I gave you too much of a bite to
No.
I know you ladies, like, your research is like your bread and butter. So I know I didn't give you too much there. So
bring it on.
Bring it on. All right, go for it.
Yeah. So to start off, El Puente Institute was created to help organizations, one, with their Latino professional development, right, to ensure that they're the employer of choice for the skilled Latino talent that is out there, and also to ensure that their organization is prepared for the growing Latino workforce that is happening right now in the U.S., and that they're prepared in a culturally relevant manner. So to give a little bit of statistics just around, the Latino workforce in general, and just Latinos, for those in your audience that don't know, Latinos are about 62.5 million of the current population. So it's about 19% and growing. We're nearly 5 million Latin-owned businesses in the U.S. So not only are we growing on a population scale, but also from an entrepreneurship scale. The U.S. Census Bureau states that about 78% of new workers between 2020 to 2030 will be of Hispanic descent. So again, it's just the continuous number growth that we are having as a community. We lead in the current GDP. So 2.84 trillion GDP is by the Hispanic Latino community. So we are basically the 5th largest country if we were to place ourselves as our own country against other large countries with a 1.8 trillion purchasing power. So we're leading in a lot of that economic strength that the Latino community brings to the U.S., right?
So, can I just really quickly,
yes, please.
To that point, there's this misnomer or this misconception that the immigrants that are coming in are draining the economy, and you are saying, no, listen, we are actually contributing trillions of dollars into the economy. So there is that misconception that I'm so glad that we're able to address here, because I hate when people think that immigrants are a burden to society without seeing the benefits of what diverse populations can bring to a nation, to bring to the culture. So I'm so excited that you shared that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and the current immigrant state is a very small percentage, though will be an future influential percentage, as you're seeing now, of the current Latinos that are already here. A lot of them are U.S. born. So
75% of all Latinos are U.S. citizens. There's U.S. citizens, whether they've
born or naturalized.
Yes. And our Z generation, so the younger generation, so anybody that was born between 1997 and 2012, 91% of them are U.S. born. So this idea that we're mostly made up of newly immigrants is actually not.
It's not true at all.
No.
I think it's because there's now this kind of magnifying glass on it that it's been illuminated, but it's not what it seems to be.
No.
Right. But this is a great future snapshot of what it is going to be even more, right? With this addition of individuals coming to the U.S. And participating. They want to just participate in working.
Growth, right. And it's not just menial jobs either.
Correct.
It's not just low level menial job. I mean, people are coming over that have advanced degrees. Correct. that want to contribute to their families and themselves and their families that may still be in other countries. So they are wanting to contribute at a high level. So yes, so I'm glad that we're able to illuminate that that statistic and that fact.
Yeah. And the challenges that we're seeing now in the complete Hispanic Latino community is that when we look at leadership positions, there isn't a representation. So we're only 8.7% of management, business, and financial occupations. And so there is a need and there is a pipeline of talented, untapped potential to fill these leadership positions. And really only 5% of board seats in Fortune 500 companies and C-suites are filled with Latinos. There's a lot of opportunity, untapped opportunity that we as Latinos are stepping up to take, and that our allies, our non-Latino allies, should also open those doors and allow, right, and participate and help fill those positions. So there's a lot of promising things that we're seeing in the community that thank you for allowing us a platform to showcase the numbers that we have and the immense economic influence and contribution that our community is making and wants to continue making. We do, though, hit some barriers, right, and challenges, and but with the help of allies and ourselves speaking up, I know that it's going to be a different picture in the next 10 or so years. And Dr. Patricia, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to the overall statistical picture of the Latino community.
No, just the growing impact of our young, because our median age is about 29 years old, so we're young. Not me personally.
You're still young. We're all still young.
Let's I know my limitations around that, but we're young and it's impactful. So it's like Patty was saying, is what we can project that is going to be, and the numbers in every level look like something that we think you just can't ignore it. But yet we find ourselves that a lot of times talking with people there, if you're not living it every day, specifically their states, like if you think about Florida, Texas, California, where you see a large population of Latinos. It's different. I live in Minnesota. I'm talking to you from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and where it's not as visible, but we are growing and the numbers are getting bigger. And I just think there needs to be an awareness that if you want to stay in business, you need to see who your talent is going to be, who your customer is going to be, who's going to be buying your things, who do you market to. And I think that's part of a lot of the work that we do is around educating and providing this information so folks can prepare.
Yeah, a funny story. I met with a young Latino executive. We were networking, and she said, here in Miami, because I'm down in South Florida, so we have a, large, much like you, Dr. Patty, in Texas, in El Paso, we have a large Hispanic community, and that's a question. What's the difference between Hispanic and Latino? That you can answer that after the story. But she's like, I'm not used to being considered a minority, because down here in South Florida, we're everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not a minority. I'm not considered a minority. I don't see myself as a minority woman down here in South Florida, but she had a position somewhere in the Midwest that they transferred her to. And she's like, the attitude and it was just so different. And I was considered a minority for the first time in my life. I didn't know how to deal with that. And so there's that culture shock when you leave a community where you see there's representation everywhere in different levels. Because down here in South Florida, you do see women in leadership positions. You see Latinos, Hispanics in leadership positions. But outside of these, like Dr. Patricia said, outside of California, Texas, and Florida, it's not as big. So, but go ahead and tell me the difference between Hispanic and Latino. Just educate.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of the times the words are used interchangeably. The Census Bureau uses Hispanic. So Hispanic is a term that means a person who comes from a country wherein Spanish is the predominant language. So if you identify as Hispanic, it's because you come from a country where Spanish is the predominant language. One example, though, that might not be the case is, for example, Belize is English is the predominant language. So it's not necessarily, they wouldn't probably consider themselves Hispanics, but more Latinos. So Latinos is the Spanish word indicating that a person comes from a Latin American country of origin. And so really people use them interchangeably. Now we have Latinx. Now we have Latin to integrate the gender fluidity of our times. And so the best thing whenever speaking with a Hispanic or Latino is to ask them, well, how would you like to be referred to? How do you refer to? Ask the person, let them define it for themselves. And then, but just always know the definitions is, Hispanic is countries within that Spanish is the predominant language. Latino is that you come from a country of origin that's in Latin America. So those are
got it. Got you. I got it. So that's why, like even Mexico, it's interchangeable with Mexicans, but I got it. Okay, all right. That helps me a lot.
we haven't agreed on what to call ourselves. It's a discussion we quite often have. So it's you can join us too, and just like Patty says, it's best when we can ask somebody because if you identify, Chicanos, which is historically Mexican Americans that were part of this country around the labor movement and have been in California and Texas, they would prefer to be called Chicanos. And so sometimes even with and some people say, no, call me from my country of origin. I'm Colombian American. And so, it's a evolving journey in the Latino community, and it's one that
in the Black community, it's like African American, Black, Afro Latina, how do you want to be identified as? Because I prefer Black because I am not African American. Well, I am now because I was naturalized, but before that, I wasn't American. I wasn't a citizen of America. So I was like, just, identify me as Black because I'm not. I'm Caribbean Black.
Right.
So yeah. So well, thank you for all of that. But we talked about women in leadership on a whole, like within the US, not just in these little pockets, but what are some of the major issues that are affecting women? Dr. Patricia, you talked about being the only one in the room a lot of times. Like what are some of the hurdles that you're seeing that women, from a statistical point and a cultural standpoint, that are having to overcome to get into those rooms?
So well, I'll start with one of something we actually discussed quite a bit last week. October 5th, that was an impactful day for the Latinas. It was equal pay day for the Latinas. So when you think about pay, well, Latinas are the last. We're the last group of individuals to make. We make 57 cents to the white man's dollar. And so, but if you think about it, Latinas make up about 16% of the current labor workforce nowadays. And we're joining the labor force at faster rates than any other group. We had a little bit of a deep dip during COVID. We did see Latinas leaving the workforce a lot during COVID, mostly due around family issues, taking care of family, having to be there for the family. But we're advancing and we're keeping up with what it means. Are opening businesses. Latinas are opening businesses at faster rates than anybody else. There was an 87% increase between 2007 and 2001 on Latina-owned businesses. So Latinas entrepreneurs are huge. And education, we are educating Latinas, and I say that as an educator. We saw a 52% rise in college degree attainment by Latinas. Our Latinas are educating themselves at a faster rate than Latino men, and a faster rate than any other group, just getting an education. So I always say the future is Latina as the women, because I see the impact that is happening. But that being said, we do face the problem around pay. And some people will say, well, it has to do with levels of education or types of careers, but we're finding out, the research just came out that even Latinas with college degrees are still making less money than those that have the exact same degree. So a Latina with a master's degree, a graduate degree, is making the same pay as a white man with a bachelor's degree. And so in a lifetime, that's about $2.5 million in losses, just because of that pay inequity. So I would say, actually the Latinas came out last week with T-shirts, if you saw it on social media, and it said, "Págame," which means pay me, kind of like, give me the money, show me the money, asking to, for pay equity. So
it's a fight women, are facing in all levels, because women as a group are having that challenge, and then when we break it into the subgroups, we're seeing even further disparities as we go down. And yes, we all need to be the pay. It's ridiculous in 2023 to consider we're still having this conversation of pay equity when and women are handling so much more always with families, parents that are aging. And I think they use that as an excuse to not pay women the same, because they're handling more outside of the workforce. But that's a reason to pay them even more, because look how much they're holding up, how are they juggling all this and still showing up for work? Right. And then even in when you look at healthcare, how the disparities in healthcare treatment. So we're not just looking at pay, we're also looking at how women of color are treated in the healthcare industry. Well, women again as a whole, but then as you go into minorities, how the disparity is showing up in even the way we are being given healthcare.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And as we see it in the Latina community, there's kind of our research has shown us there's two areas on where we're seeing the disparity. So it's these pay the stereotypes that are placed on Latinas as being spicy and sometimes even, the whole sexualized, idolized way of looking at Latinas. So that's kind of also a challenge that we're not seen as assertive and serious, right? Or as leadership, executive presence material because of these already set biases and stereotypes. And then there's another side of our community and our own our own mental schemas or mental expectations that are placed on us to be the nurturing caregivers, self-sacrificing. And so that is the part of the Institute that we focus our research on, which is called cultural drivers of the Latino community. So these are these very deep values that shape how we show up in the workplace, both male and female, shape how we show up as a community. And so in the Institute, we do a lot of work in helping our allies understand them. For allies, they're called cultural scripts because they don't know what they feel like because they're not part of our community, so they can't drive them, right? They can know about familismo, which is, for example, one of the scripts, familism, how we're very family-oriented, but they don't know what that looks like or feels like in a Latino sense. So there's scripts for our allies. For our Latino community, they're drivers because we have the ability to drive how they show up in a workplace and how we pull them back if we need to. So as Latinas, we're seeing that that's another challenge is we understand the expectations placed on us as women of the community, but we don't realize that we can drive that on our own when we understand them, when we can name them, and when we can integrate them in our own identity we choose to do. So that's another challenge that we're at the Institute being very intentional about teaching and showing and the awareness of these drivers, how they show up. I know, Dr. Patricia, if you can please add more, your insight is always so valuable and so clear in the way that she does that, which is why I love her.
Yeah.
No, it's so, when I was thinking about my doctoral work and my dissertation, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to learn is, so how do I show up as a Latina? What is it when I lead? And the research and the data indicates that leaders when allowed, can bring a lot of their identity into the work that they do. So I started doing a lot of research around that. I found that most of the research and most of the literature and most of the practices are based on white Anglo-Saxon leadership theories, most of it. So there has been the last 15 years or so more research on women of color leading. So I started to look about what was it that we had in common with other women of color, with our African American, Black sisters, Asian, Indigenous women, and there was some commonalities. But what I really started to think about is, how do I delve it really deeply into our culture and say, well, how, why? And so that's it's not a concept that I came up with. We didn't come up with it. It has been used in education, in social work, in medicine, mostly when talking to patients or working with clients. But then there is the data and the research, and Patty and I and Alejandra continue to do research around this to see how does it affect my identity as a Latina leader, right? And Latinos too, because the scripts are also applicable to men. I just done most of my research with Latinas. And so just gaining an understanding, and it was amazing to me once I saw it, and I interviewed people and did surveys. And once we shared them with the Latinas, or we do classes around this and leadership development around this, we have these moments of, aha, I didn't realize, wow, this is why I behave this way, or now I have a name for it, or I can use it differently now because I understand it. So it's really nothing tremendously new around self-awareness, because best leaders are self-aware leaders, right? The biggest strength you can have is really knowing who you are. I tell people, if you really know who you are, that's your strongest strength, doesn't matter what it is. But it's now having that knowledge based on your identity, and
the language, being able to articulate. I always talk about articulating your strengths. It's so important. You know it, you have a feeling about it, but being able to share that with someone else so that they can see it and they can say, oh, yes, that is powerful in itself. Listen, we are out of time. I don't know how this time evaporated on us, but I want you to just share, like, what really quickly give us some action items. Like, what can we do to support this initiative that you have? Just share with us and how people can contact you.
So we're available on LinkedIn, on all the social media outlets under El Puente Institute. Each of us individually, you can always connect. People can connect with us. Please, if you can share that info, that's wonderful. Also, our website with the Bridgerify group. So the Bridgerify group is co-partners with El Puente, Bridgerify El Puente. And so you can connect with us in those manners. The last thing I would like to leave is that this journey of understanding each other from a very cultural, relevant perspective is an important journey, one that should be a strategic priority in organization leaderships right now. This world is becoming more multicultural. And so if we are not in tune with what that looks like, organizations are going to suffer. This is like an imperative type topic that needs to be part of the strategic planning. So together, I know that we can do that. And for the Hispanic community, El Puente is here to help those organizations and leaders. So, yeah.
Well, with that said, thank you so much, Dr. Patty and Dr. Patricia, for joining us today on Unleash Your Audacious Confidence. And I would just like to leave you with this: to be bold, to be brave, and every day do one thing to step out with audacious confidence. Patty, can you say that in Spanish for me?
Oh my God, you put me on the spot.
I put you on the spot. Be bold.
Be bold. The word for bold is, we say chingona.
All right. Be brave.
Poderosas, ser poderosas.
Poderosas, yes. Be bold, poderosas.
And do one thing to step out with audacious confidence.
Y hacer una cosa que nos deja seguir adelante con seguridad.
Confianza. Yes. All right.
Confianza.
Thank you, Leda. Thank you, ladies. I know I put you on the spot.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence here on Win Win Women TV.